date to the Jim Crow period. They date to the Civil Rights period. They are not about the Civil War. They are about reasserting the color line. They are about keeping whites and blacks separated. And that is not something we as Americans should honor. So I just wanted to give you my 2 cents on that. It's really important to me.
And to piggyback off of that, if these events inspire you to reenact the Civil War for the Union cause, come talk to me. Our unit is great. We are union reenactors for the 28th New York, which is actually a unit that mustered out of the Navy and China. But if you want to actually be a part of the literal living history, there's an event every year, happening in May. So I'm a part of that group. So if you want to get involved in that or know more about it, you can talk to me. It's recording.
People can think it make America great again.
Making America great again is always the right thing.
Making America great again means more tie-dye t-shirts. I don't know why no one's got the memo. But if you're going to say MAGA, you have to do it like you're riveting. MAGA. It's kind of fun.
Activism comes with a risk I would never ask of others. It is a risk I understand and have taken. Heather didn't need to die for a cause she believed in, but Heather understood the risk and she followed her heart. We must now be her voice so her work will continue. I know that Donald Trump receives thousands of tweets daily, but I sent him a tweet on Saturday before the dust settles in Charlottesville. I said to him, I won't poke at you the rest of the day. You have thinking to do and choices to make that will define your legacy. His great response to anything is a tweet. In reality, that is the most minimal response. His tweet on Saturday was fine, but he was going to have to speak. When his words are not scripted for him, we hear his real thoughts. On Saturday and Tuesday, we heard his real thoughts. Since he runs his presidency through Twitter, I use it often to make my statements to him. In response to what he had said off the leash, on Tuesday I wrote, sending it to him, Trump made an equivalency between the two sides in Charlottesville. Will he make an equivalency between ISIS and we who stand against them? For white supremacist groups are terrorist groups. A month or so ago, I got rid of my cable, but I'm still a news junkie. I switched to watching, or listening really, to CNN, NBC, Fox News live streaming on YouTube. On these channels, which there are many, they have a chat box to the right of the video. You have the option to hide that chat box, which most of the time I do, but occasionally I'll leave it open. If you want to witness the ugliness of white supremacy, go ahead and try it. One evening as I was watching people spew hate, I wrote, I hate racism. Now understand that I use the same avatar on YouTube as I do on Facebook and most all my online accounts. That's different from most people since they hide behind anonymity to make their proud proclamations. What they see is a white girl. It made one of them stop in his tracks, and we had a conversation. He asked me why I wasn't a racist. I told him I detest discrimination and bigotry of all types. I then asked him why he's a white supremacist. He told me that he wasn't always, but he had a few negative run-ins with black guys. I'm boiling down the conversation. I also learned what Pepe the Frog is, and several other things that are the standard cut-and-paste rhetoric they were posting. Because I'm intellectually curious and I like to ask questions. I've spoken before about the last beating I took before I left school. It was a vicious beating by 3 black guys. And I guess I could have taken
It's okay.
I guess I could have taken the road this guy did and become a racist or a white supremacist. But it never occurred to me to blame an entire race for the actions of 3 random guys. What it did, though, was make me very afraid of black men for several years. We call this PTSD. I was blessed for having served in the military, where I was able to work through that fear by working side by side with them. By stopping that white supremacist in his tracks and having a conversation with him, it broadened my intellectual horizons. Enough so that I can pick out the rhetoric that is falling from our president's lips. It was not shocking to me that he has adopted their wording and talking points. But now I can pick out the dog whistles. What we can hope is that Donald Trump is found unfit for office and his administration removed. The damage he has done in so many areas is still repairable. We can't guarantee that damage he will do in the future is repairable. And we know he will do more damage because he is capable of nothing else. Just as a suicide strengthened my resolve as an activist for transgender rights, a murder has strengthened my resolve as an activist against racism. Heather didn't need to die for a cause she believed in, but she strengthened my resolve. Thank you.
Good job. I don't want to stop recording either.
Oh, you don't know how? No. Oh, you don't know how?
No.
All right. Hopefully you got it.
I wasn't going to talk, so I'll be brief. So we're all here. This was a vigil for Heather Heyer, who, was killed in Charlottesville because she was counter-protesting the alt-right, neo-Nazis, etc. And there's been a lot of fallout. A lot of people on the internet, a lot of think pieces have come about since then, and it's a lot kind of trying to justify, self-defense and meeting neo-Nazis with violence, or violence of the alt-left, like all of us, very dangerous, threatening people right here. But aside from that, it's totally normal and expected to be hurt, and anger typically comes from either being afraid or being hurt. So anger is normal, but we have one thing that the alt-right and white supremacists and the KKK and neo-Nazis or whatever else they're going to adopt as a label, we have one thing that they don't have, and that's love, and the fact that we have compassion for people, regardless of whether or not we know them. And that compassion is the tool that will drive out this hate. We look at, quotes from Martin Luther King and Maya Angelou and other people who have stood up to oppression over the years, and we kind of cleave to that as knowledge, but it is true. And when I was in DC for the Women's March, we had this whole day, and there were all kinds of chants and slogans going around that were varying degrees of, hatred toward Donald Trump, and certainly we feel justified in having those feelings, but we have the choice to react the same way that these people do by using intimidation or threats or outright violence, or to meet them with compassion and understanding. And that whole day, I heard all these different things, and I was experiencing all these different things, and I looked up, and in a tree was actually a sign that someone had placed there, and it was a quote from Martin Luther King, and it said, "Let no man pull you so low as to hate him." And that has stuck with me since January, because all the different things that we might feel completely justified in being really, really angry about, if we use that and let it take us to the same place that it has taken neo-Nazis and the KKK and white supremacists, and use that as an excuse and a vehicle to take matters into our own hands, or to be violent, or to use, intimidation tactics over the internet, we're using the same things that neo-Nazis, KKK, white supremacists do to exert intimidation and fear. And we have the choice to respond in a different way. And that compassion, that empathy, that respect is what actually is going to change the future and going to eventually drive all that hate. So I try to keep that in mind when I feel so many emotions and so many really negative things coming up after someone is literally killed for standing up to neo-Nazis. You feel a lot of things. But I try to keep in mind to not let anybody pull me so low as to hate them back.
I'd like to lift up this time not only Heather, but the countless and nameless hundreds of people for the last 4 centuries that have suffered the indignities of racism. Many, many people have given their lives just trying to live with dignity. And I hold in my heart all of those people at this time. I've seen a lot of posters over the last several months, and some of them say things like silence is complicity, or silence is consent. And sometimes that's true. But there's another kind of silence. There's a type of silence from which we draw our strength and our peace. It's a silence where we can connect to not just love, but maybe the source of love. And I would ask us now for a moment of silence to remember Heather, her family who mourns her loss, and those who loved her who mourn her loss, and all of the people, not just in the last few months, but throughout history, who have given their lives for love and justice and dignity. This is a silence for which I think we can stand with pride. Thank you.